Hello and welcome to my video. So in this video I'll be sculpting elephants. So the reason I'm doing this is for my ceramics class. As you can see, I'm not home. I'm actually at college and now I'm on winter break, so I finally got time to edit this video. So in this video I'm sculpting two giant elephants. The reason I'm doing this is for my ceramics class. Inside ceramics class we have to sculpt a project based on historical project, so like a historical piece of ceramics work. So I found a piece called the Kakimon elephants. It's from Japan, and during the Edo period, I think it was called. But basically, it's a pair of elephants that were ceramics, and they were made inside molds. And the potters actually had never seen an elephant before, but they sculpted them from sketches they've seen of elephants on the market, the European market. And these were like high-priced items. So these elephants are actually at the British Museum right now. And so I based my project off of them. My historical project did some research about the elephant sculptures, and I made my own. I made mine. I wanted to make mine really realistic to what elephants actually look like. I didn't want them to be cartooned at all, because I have made a ceramics elephant. It was a small pinch pot that I talked about in a different video, but it was like a smaller elephant that it wasn't realistic, didn't have much detail. But in these elephants, I definitely wanted to add a lot more detail. And so as you can see there, I sculpted the heads of the elephant. I sculpted two of them because it's going to be a pair. And I used a lot of clay for this too. I sculpted them solid, which would mean I didn't make them hollow. And the reason that's important is because I had to go back in later and carve out the entire clay, so then it was thinner. So then the kiln wouldn't, because if you put a ball of clay that's a really big lump of clay, it'll crack inside the kiln. Because of the moisture content inside the clay, if it's not fully dried out because it's so thick. So me carving them out prevents the clay from cracking inside the kiln. And that's what made this project a pretty big struggle, because being these sculptures, they're so big that it was hard to make them hollow, because it would just take me so much more time. So I sculpted them solid, and later you'll see I cut them open and had to carve out all the clay. And another struggle of this project is actually making the bodies of these elephants proportionate to the head. It was actually really hard, and harder than I was expecting. It was a weird challenge, but after I made the heads, I made them identical, but making the bodies was the really hard part, which is a surprising thing because the heads had the most detail. For me, they were pretty easy. The heads were. But yeah, as you can see here, I used some sponges, so then the clay didn't get flattened out on the other side of the clay as I was working on one side. And I sculpted the legs pretty rough the first time I did it, and then I dried them out a little bit to leather hard, so they kept their form. And then once the clay was like leather hard, which basically means they're a little drier, the clay is a little drier, I then smoothed it all out, added some details, and as you can see here, I had two clay bodies for the elephants. Obviously, they're not attached, and these are just in pieces. I built the elephant in parts, and then I kept them in plastic so I can let them dry out just a bit and then work on them the next class. And then I'll combine them. You'll see me combining them later. So these elephants was a big project. I didn't actually meet the due date for when this was due, but that was okay because I got some extra time to work on them, and I put in a lot of extra hours on this project. I think I went one day and worked there for like 6 hours or something crazy. I was there for a while, like a really long time working on this, and I dedicated a lot of class periods to working on this project. It was the biggest project that I've worked on inside this class. And as you can see here, like I said before, I had to carve out all the elephants, like the elephant body, which took the longest. Making the body and making the head of the elephants was scary, because it was like, if I don't get it right, I have to restart. But this was scarier because it's like you have to carve, and it took a long time too. You have to carve out the entire elephant because it was too thick. Also, excuse the camera moving. I put it on a like a plate that rotates, and then it rotated and I didn't notice. But yeah, you'll I end up switching the camera back anyways. I'll give you a better view in a minute, but basically I carved out all the elephants, all the contents of the clay that wasn't being used inside the center. And this also gave me back all that clay I used on these sculptures, because I had used like an entire bag of clay. It was crazy. I used a lot of clay. And then I carved it all out and got it all back, and I just recycled it. I just added some water to it after like all these little bits I carved out. And then I had to go through the feet, as you can see here. I had to carve through the bottom of the foot, or the feet, I guess, inside the bottom of the elephants. So then the air can go through, like when it's inside the kiln, the air can go through the elephant and fire properly inside the kiln. And like I said before, if it's too thick anywhere on the elephant, it'll just crack in half. So I was really scared of this happening. So I just wanted to be careful and make sure that the piece was really thin. So then, as you can see here, I reattached the first half to the second half of the elephant, and then I started assembling the elephants. And this is when it all came together. So they were in pieces for a while, and then when I finally put the head on the body of the elephant, it was like I could see the end of the project, and I was really happy with the way it looked at this stage. I did add a coil to the top of the elephant body, and then to the base of the head, just so then the neck was a little bit longer. And then I slipped and scored the surface of the head and the body and put the pieces together. Yeah, so this was the elephants so far, and I just had to let them dry out. It was really just a waiting game, and it was kind of scary because if there was any pieces on the elephant that dried out too quickly, or like, you know, it was like too weighted, like maybe the feet, you know, they were holding up a lot of weight of the elephant body. There was potential that it was going to crack when it was drying out too. So there's a lot of risks going into this project, and I had never sculpted a solid object and then carved it out later. So I was hopeful that it wasn't going to crack, and thankfully it didn't. I actually used a hot box, which is just like a heater inside of a box that helps the clay dry out faster. And this is the elephants. This is what we got. So I used a sponge to keep up the heads of the elephants too, just so then they didn't collapse when they were a little bit wetter. And I'm pretty happy with the way these came out. I think they're pretty realistic. I think the body is a little bit less realistic than I would have hoped for, but that amount of detail, it took way too much time to get what I have already. And if I added more detail, I would have been working on it for like another 12 hours. So I had to just say it's done and put them into the kiln. And this is them bone dry, which means they're ready to go into the kiln, and that's what I got. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a really fun process making these elephants, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.